Going back to oven temperature, I heard this great quote, and the quote was 350 degrees Fahrenheit is the 55 miles per hour of ovens. And that quote was just referring to cooking. It didn't really have anything to do with what we do, the building. But I thought it was a really, really, really important sort of landmark for us to keep in mind when we're building our ovens, when we're thinking about our stoves. Because these brick ovens, particularly, or masonry in general, ovens, are somewhat limited by the nature of the material that surrounds them, because they'll never get hotter, much hotter than that material will get, and that material will be have the rate at which it heats up controlled by the rate at which it sends heat out. So a thicker oven can get hotter on the inside because it has more insulation. A more insulated oven can get hotter on the inside. When I say thicker, I mean thicker with red bricks as opposed to thinner with red bricks, and so on and so on. You can go on down that road a long ways. But what I want to bring up is that the bells next to the cook stoves in my designs, and I think that generally most of the rocket stoves I've built. Now, if you have a big radiator, it'll be a little cooler after the descending downdraft section, right after the riser. But in most rocket stoves that I've built and experienced, pretty much right after the riser, a little bit of radiator, and somewhere out after that, you're in that 200 to 400 degree range. And that is kind of the oven sweet spot. 350 degrees is the 55 miles per hour of ovens. And so, the reason I want to bring that up is because I want to just bring up something about oven temperatures and bell temperatures in general inside. And that is that they respond, let's see, how can I put this? They respond to temperature, the space inside the bell is moderated by the masonry of the bell, and the whole thing responds to temperature sort of as a unit. And so unless you insulate very well inside the oven, you should not expect your oven to blast right up to 350 degrees and stay there, right? To get to 350 degrees, you're going to have to burn until the whole masonry inside is 350 degrees. And then it will be very stable at that temperature. And so this is just my way of saying, I've had some people say, can this oven reach 400 degrees? And can I bake at 400 degrees? Absolutely. Can it reach 450 degrees? Probably. Can it reach 500 degrees? It's getting to the high end of things. But what I really want to stress is that while I say it can reach 450 degrees, you have to understand that in order to do that, you've probably been burning all day just because you need to get all the masonry that hot. And so when I say 350 is the 55 miles per hour, what I want to point out is that what our goals are when we design these stoves, we design for when the stove is hot, okay? People talk about their bench top temperature, what is too hot, what is too cold, and we talked about it last week. Well, what you want is you want it to be just right when it's really cold outside and you've been burning all day. Okay, you've been trying to get your stove as hot as you can. So that's what we want to design for. We don't want to design for one fire in the firebox unless that's all we're ever going to have. So Peter Vandenberg does do that, and he's a brilliant man, and I think it's a wonderful design for that type of situation where you have a passive type house or your stove is designed just such you can get all the heat out of it with one burn. But should you ever want to have more burns, if you've designed for one burn, you're going to have things that overheat. Whereas if we design ours for continuous burning and we design for when the stove is hot, we won't have overheating situations. This is a long way of just kind of saying, if your ideal bench temp is 100 degrees, you want your bench temp to be 100 degrees after 6 hours of burning. You don't want it to be there after 1 hour burning, or it's going to be 300 degrees, when it's been 6 hours of burning on those really cold days, if that's what ends up happening. So, same thing with ovens. If you don't ever anticipate burning your stove hot enough to get the whole thing hot, but you want a hot oven, then you probably need to insulate inside your oven chamber so you can just heat the oven and not heat the bricks. Conversely, if cooking is a goal of yours, but you also like these long heat cycles, then you might move your oven down lower in your bell so that you can have the oven blazing hot. And maybe what you like to cook is a lower temperature cooking thing. Or maybe you just put racks at different temps if it's the black oven like I like. And speaking of black ovens and white ovens, one thing that question I get a lot is people really, really struggling with the concept, or not the concept, but choosing between those black and white ovens. And I'm going to just reiterate that my choice is black oven because it gives you a wider range of temperature and a little more control. And if I want it to be a white oven, I can just cook whatever I want to cook inside a covered cooker. So I like Amelie Henry ceramic Dutch ovens and things. They're great for cooking, for baking bread. They're great, anything that you want to just bake normally, you can bake in a covered ceramic roaster, and that makes it a white oven. So to me, that's the simple solution, and you get great cooking. So let me get back up with the chat. I just wanted to touch base on design when the stove is hot and oven temps. And part of design for when the stove is hot comes down to skin temps as well, like we talked about with benches. So just keep that in mind. If you're somewhere where it's warm and you're not going to burn much, you might need to modify things. If you're somewhere where it's cold and you're going to be burning hot all the time, then maybe it is time to look at maybe double skins or things like that. So, and these are things that you can tune once you've built the stove as well. So just keep those things in mind. And Belgian Gulch says more flavor in a black oven, and I totally agree. I mean, I like a black oven because most of my cooking is going to be smoking meat. I don't really do any baking anymore, but even when I was doing a lot of baking, I still liked my black oven. So there you go.